If you study the American experience in the Second World War long enough, you eventually encounter a contradiction that forces you to pause. On one hand, the United States government interned more than 100,000 Japanese Americans, stripping families of their homes, businesses, and basic freedoms. On the other, the same nation recruited the sons of those families, young men classified as Nisei, second-generation Japanese Americans, and sent them to fight in Europe. What emerged from that contradiction was the most decorated unit per capita in United States military history, a record that still stands today, and yet, outside specialist circles, the story remains largely invisible. The units most associated with this legacy are the 442nd Regimental Combat Team, the 100th Infantry Battalion, and the Military Intelligence Service. Together, they formed a force built not on political trust, because the government didn't trust them, but on personal conviction. Many volunteered from internment camps. They signed up despite the barbed wire surrounding their families, not because they believed in the fairness of their treatment, but because they believed deeply in the idea of proving loyalty through service. The 100th Infantry Battalion was the first to deploy, initially composed of Japanese Americans from Hawaii, who were not mass interned in the same way as those on the mainland. They were sent to Italy in 1943. Soon, they were fighting their way through some of the most brutal terrain of the European theatre. Their casualty rate became so high that they earned the title the Purple Heart Battalion, yet they never broke, never dissolved, never folded under pressure. When the 442nd was formed on the mainland, many of its soldiers were the sons of families still locked inside camps like Manzanar, Hart Mountain, and Poston. They trained under intense scrutiny, fully aware that the public doubted them, and honestly even the government questioned them. But when the 442nd joined the 100th in Europe, the two units fused into one of the most relentless fighting forces the United States Army would field. The campaign that best captures their discipline and determination is, without a doubt, the rescue of the Lost Battalion in October 1944. A Texas National Guard unit, the 1st Battalion of the 141st Infantry, was surrounded by German forces in the dense Vosges Mountains. Repeated attempts to break through failed. The terrain was steep, the weather punishing, and the German defences entrenched. When the 442nd was ordered forward, its officers knew the cost. The men pressed through machine gun nests, artillery barrages, and fortified positions with a persistence that stunned even hardened commanders. By the time the Lost Battalion was reached, the 442nd had taken massive casualties. The Texans they rescued never forgot it. To this day, the relationship between Texas veterans groups and Nisei descendants remains one of the most genuine bonds formed in World War II. Less visible but equally important were the contributions of the Military Intelligence Service, whose Japanese-American linguists were embedded across the Pacific. Their work shortened the war significantly. They translated captured documents, interpreted prisoner interrogations, monitored radio communications, and sometimes even stepped onto front lines to call on Japanese holdouts to surrender. The MIS veterans were long kept in the shadows because of post-war politics, but, when later historians examined United States intelligence advantages in the Pacific, MIS contributions were undeniable. American commanders, including General MacArthur, credited them with saving tens of thousands of lives. What makes the Nisei story compelling from a historian's standpoint is the contradiction of sacrifice under discrimination. These soldiers fought not because they were trusted, but because they wanted their service to force the country to confront its own principles. Their decorations, over 18,000 individual awards, 21 medals of honor, and thousands of Purple Hearts weren't symbolic. They were earned in combat environments where, honestly, failure meant annihilation. Their loyalty was proven under conditions no other American group was asked to endure. For too long, their story remained buried under the broader narrative of the war. Many returned home to find their families still behind fences, or, their property gone. The country eventually acknowledged its error decades later, when the government issued a formal apology and compensation for the internment. But recognition for the Nisei units themselves came slowly, piece by piece, often pushed forward by veterans organizations rather than public institutions. To study the Nisei story is to confront an uncomfortable truth. Patriotism can exist even when a nation fails its own citizens. The Nisei didn't wait for that failure to be corrected. They simply did the job. Historians today see this as one of the clearest examples of duty carried out for ideals rather than institutions. If you want more unsung histories, overlooked units, and buried facts that deserve to be pulled back into the light, subscribe to Strange History and share this episode with others who appreciate serious, evidence-driven storytelling.